On a cold December morning in 1958, a family of 5 prepared for what was meant to be a simple, joyful outing, the kind that marks the beginning of the holiday season. Kenneth Martin, a hard-working father, and his wife Barbara, a gentle homemaker, loaded their 3 daughters, Barbara, Virginia, and Susan, into their station wagon. Their plan was simple: drive into the Columbia River Gorge to gather greenery for Christmas decorations. It was the sort of family moment that captures the warmth of ordinary life: laughter in the car, a thermos of coffee, the crisp winter air. But that day would become one of Oregon's darkest mysteries. Because the Martins never returned home. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. And as the years rolled on, their story faded into whispers and legend. Yet the silence of the Columbia River held on to its secret, until now. 66 years later, in the same waters that once mirrored the Martins' final drive, a diver made a discovery that would shake the foundations of this decades-old mystery. A car, buried deep beneath layers of silt and time, emerged from the darkness of the riverbed. Rusted, broken, but unmistakable. It was the same make, the same model, the same ghost that investigators had chased since 1958. And with it came a question that cuts to the core of human longing: what really happened to the Martin family? This is not just a story about a car pulled from the depths. It's a story about a family swallowed by time. About hope that refused to drown. And about the haunting persistence of truth. Welcome to the Found Files, the channel where the lost are remembered, and where mysteries buried by decades finally resurface. If you stay with us, you might help bring the truth into the light. You might even help another family find the closure they've been praying for. A family vanished. 2 daughters' bodies washed ashore months later. The rest of the family remained missing, their names, their memories, echoing through generations. Loved ones waited in silence, never knowing if they'd ever see the faces they cherished again. And now, after more than half a century, the river is finally speaking. If you care about those who vanish without a trace, if you believe that every life deserves to be found, and every mystery deserves to be told, then don't just watch. Join us. Hit that subscribe button, share this story, and become part of the search for truth. Because this is one story that demands to be heard. In the late 1950s, Portland, Oregon was a portrait of post-war peace and prosperity. Families thrived in quiet neighborhoods lined with elms and maples, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, and doors were often left unlocked. On Northeast 56th Avenue stood the modest home of Kenneth and Barbara Martin, a hard-working couple raising 3 young daughters in the comforting rhythm of mid-century America. Kenneth, known to friends as Ken, worked as a repairman for Eccles Electric Home Service. He was steady, practical, and deeply devoted to his family. His wife Barbara was the heart of the household, the kind of mother who always made sure the girls' lunches were packed and the home smelled faintly of cinnamon and coffee. Together, they built a life defined by love, routine, and quiet dignity. Their daughters, Barbara, age 14, Virginia, 13, and Susan, 11, were bright, curious, and inseparable. They attended Rose City Park School, helped their mother with chores, and spent evenings listening to radio shows or playing board games in the living room. To neighbors, the Martins were the picture of family perfection, a typical Oregon household living an honest life in a growing city. But what no one could have imagined was that the warmth of that household would soon be replaced by silence. It was the Christmas season of 1958. The air was crisp, the streets glowed with festive lights, and the Columbia River Gorge was draped in winter mist. For the Martins, gathering greenery for decorations was a cherished family ritual. Every year, they'd pack into their 2-tone 1954 Ford Country Squire station wagon, cream and red, with its signature wood paneling, and drive east along the river to collect branches of holly and evergreens. It was their way of ushering in the season, a simple trip that carried the magic of family tradition. December 7, 1958 was no different. Ken loaded the car early that morning. Barbara tucked blankets in the back seat, just in case the day turned cold. The girls climbed in, full of chatter and excitement. It was meant to be a short trip, a few hours at most. They planned to be home before dusk, perhaps to hang their greenery and sip cocoa before dinner. Far away, across the country, their son Donald, 28 years old, a Navy veteran turned college student in New York, was unaware that this ordinary day would become the dividing line in his family's history. He was proud of his parents, close to his sisters, and often wrote letters home. In those days, communication took time, and so it would be weeks before he'd even realize something was wrong. As the Martins' car pulled out of the driveway that morning, there was no sign of trouble. The neighbors waved. The girls laughed. And the family of 5 disappeared into the pale winter light, not knowing that this simple Sunday drive would mark the beginning of one of Oregon's most enduring mysteries. The Martins' Ford Country Squire station wagon, cream and red, with its wooden side panels polished to a suburban shine, rolled out of Portland that Sunday morning. It was December 7, 1958. Christmas was coming, and the family had planned something simple, something pure, to drive east through the Columbia River Gorge, cut some greenery, and return home by nightfall. They followed the winding highway through Troutdale and Bonneville, where the winter air was crisp, and the fog curled low around the mountains. At about 4 p.m., a gas station attendant in Cascade Locks remembered seeing them, a father, mother, and 3 cheerful girls, their car neatly packed. Ken paid for fuel, thanked the attendant, and drove on. That was the last confirmed sighting of the entire family together. A few witnesses later claimed to have seen them again, at the Paradise Snack Bar in Hood River, about 20 miles east. A waitress thought she remembered the family ordering a quick bite, the girls laughing at something their father said. But that, too, would become part of the haze, uncertain memories from a long, cold night. Then silence. Monday came, and Ken Martin didn't show up for work at Eccles Electric. The girls' teachers noted their absence from school. At first, no one panicked, maybe they'd stayed longer in the gorge, maybe car trouble. But by Tuesday, the unease hardened into dread. When police entered the Martins' home on Northeast 56th Avenue, they found no sign of departure, no packed bags, no goodbye notes. The laundry was half done, dishes were stacked in the sink, and the television was still plugged in. Everything suggested a family that meant to return that same evening. But the Martins never did. As the search began, strange clues began to surface. Near Cascade Locks, officers found an abandoned white 1951 Chevrolet, reported stolen just days before. It had been left near a steep embankment overlooking the Columbia River. Not far from it, searchers discovered a .38 caliber revolver, wrapped in a pair of men's gloves. The gun had recently been fired. Investigators wondered, was it connected? Could another car have forced the Martins off the road? Or had something far darker followed them into that foggy gorge? The questions deepened as the nights grew colder. A simple family outing was now a haunting mystery, a drive into the wilderness that had become a vanishing act. And somewhere in the depths of the Columbia River, something was waiting, a secret sealed beneath decades of current and time. Spring came to the Columbia Gorge, but for the Martin family, it was a season of heartbreak. 5 months after their disappearance, the river began to give up its secrets. In May of 1959, a fisherman near Camas, Washington, spotted something pale tangled in driftwood. It was the body of 13-year-old Virginia Martin, her small frame battered by months in the current. A week later, 25 miles upstream near Bonneville Dam, searchers found her younger sister, Susan, just 11 years old. Both deaths were officially ruled as accidental drownings, victims of the relentless Columbia River. But 3 family members, Kenneth, Barbara, and their eldest daughter, Barbara Jr., remained missing. No car. No clothing. No trace. It was as if the river had swallowed them whole. The search continued for months. Police scoured the cliffs, dragged the river, and followed every lead. Air patrols flew low over the gorge, hoping to spot the family's Ford Country Squire. Volunteers joined the search, driven by hope that somehow, somewhere, the Martins had found safety. But every tip ended the same way, silence. The years that followed were filled with theories. Some believed it was a tragic accident, that the car had skidded off icy pavement and plunged into the river's depths, unseen by passing motorists. Others were not so sure. That stolen white Chevrolet, abandoned near the riverbank. The .38 revolver, discovered nearby and recently fired. And the 2 ex-convicts spotted in the area the same weekend the Martins vanished. To many, it hinted at something darker, perhaps robbery, perhaps murder. But with no evidence to confirm it, the case drifted into the realm of mystery. For Kenneth and Barbara's only surviving child, Donald Martin, then a young Navy veteran studying in New York, the loss was unbearable. One day he had a family, a home filled with laughter and warmth. The next, he had only questions. Donald would spend years writing letters, urging authorities not to forget, asking for another search, another dive, another look. But time is a thief. Decades passed. Investigators retired, records gathered dust, and memories blurred. The Martins' house was sold, their names became a headline frozen in Oregon history, the vanished family of Portland. And yet, for those who remembered, the ache never left. The Martins became ghosts in the collective memory of the Pacific Northwest, a family frozen in a single winter's day, driving east toward the unknown. They lived, he says softly, in the shadow of what-ifs. For 66 years, the Columbia River kept its secret, until one cold March morning, in 2025, when a diver's camera revealed the truth beneath the silt. For 66 years, the Columbia River had guarded its secret, a silence so complete it seemed eternal. Then, in 2025, that silence began to crack. The breakthrough came not from law enforcement, but from determination, one man's refusal to let the mystery rest. His name was Archer Mayo, a diver and researcher from White Salmon, Washington. Fascinated by local cold cases, Mayo had spent years studying the Martin family's disappearance, poring over old police reports, vintage maps, and underwater topography of the Columbia River Gorge. While others had moved on, he kept searching. Using sonar imaging and digital modeling, he traced possible entry points along the steep roads near Cascade Locks, the same area where the family had last been seen alive. He believed that the Martin station wagon, a 1954 Ford Country Squire, might still be there, buried deep under decades of mud and silt. In late 2024, his persistence paid off. 50 feet beneath the dark waters, Mayo's sonar picked up a faint outline, the unmistakable shape of a vehicle resting upside down. When divers descended, they confirmed it, a rusted frame, shattered glass, and chrome outlines matching a mid-century Ford. The paint was long gone, but the profile was hauntingly familiar. It was a discovery that would make headlines across Oregon and beyond. On March 6 and 7, 2025, salvage crews returned to the site. The recovery was painstaking, silt and sediment had sealed the vehicle like a tomb. Bit by bit, using airlifts and cables, they brought pieces of the car to the surface. A twisted chassis. A corroded engine block. The shape of a family's final moments rising from the depths. Authorities examined what remained. Though no human remains were found during the initial lift, investigators said they were 99% certain it was the Martins' car. The make, model, and condition matched perfectly, a Ford Country Squire, once cream and red, now gray with time. Among the debris were personal artifacts, rusted fragments, traces of fabric, a camera bearing the name Kenneth Martin. It was as if time itself had chosen that moment to surrender the truth. For those who had waited, the discovery was bittersweet. After 66 years, the Martins were finally found, not alive, but at peace. For the community, it was closure. For their surviving son, Donald, wherever he may be, it was an answer to the question that had haunted his entire life. And for those who believe that stories like this should never be forgotten, it was proof that persistence still matters, even after 6 decades of silence. The Columbia River never lied, he says. It only waited for someone brave enough to listen. As the river released its grip on the past, the pieces began to fall into place. The recovered car, now rusted beyond recognition, was carefully examined by investigators and historians alike. The license plate fragments matched the number registered to Kenneth and Barbara Martin's 1954 Ford Country Squire. The engine serial numbers aligned. Even the faint traces of red and cream paint still clinging to the frame confirmed it. The vehicle long lost to myth was real, and it belonged to the Martins. Authorities immediately treated the recovery site as an active investigation. After all, 6 decades of speculation had blurred the line between accident and foul play. Was this truly a tragic slide off a dark winter road? Or was there something far more sinister hiding beneath the water? Forensic teams combed through every inch of the wreckage. Among the debris, a haunting discovery, a camera with Kenneth Martin's name etched inside. Inside the corroded casing were remnants of film rolls, too damaged to develop but unmistakable in their weight. Personal belongings, twisted fragments of family life, and the worn-out metal of a once vibrant vehicle told a silent story, of a family caught between everyday life and a mystery that would span generations. For decades, the Columbia River had been both witness and keeper. Now, in March of 2025, it finally yielded its truth, or at least part of it. The revelation rippled through Oregon. Reporters, historians, and local residents gathered near Cascade Locks, watching as the crane lifted the remains of the country squire from the river's surface. It was a moment of awe and quiet grief. People wept openly. Some held candles. Others whispered prayers for a family they had never met but had come to know through the decades of unanswered questions. For the Martin family, there could be no physical reunion. Kenneth, Barbara, and their eldest daughter, Barbara Jr., were still missing. Their remains, as of early 2025, had not been recovered. Yet, in a symbolic sense, the family was finally found. After 66 years of silence, the Martin story was no longer buried under mud and memory. The discovery gave them a voice once more, a chance for the world to remember them not as a case number, but as people. A father. A mother. 3 little girls who went out to gather Christmas greenery and never came home. The narrator's tone softens, the weight of time pressing through every word. After decades, their story is finally being told out loud, he says. The Martins are no longer missing in the dark, they've been brought back into the light. But the mystery is not yet complete. Even as divers and investigators continue their work, questions remain. Did the family's car slide off the icy road into the Columbia by accident? Or was there something else, something hidden behind that stolen car, that discarded gun, and the uneasy silence that followed? As of early 2025, the investigation continues. The river may have returned the car, but the truth, the full truth, still waits beneath the surface. The Columbia River is quiet again. Its waters, once cold and secretive, now flow over a wound that has finally been opened. But as the ripples fade, one truth remains: 5 lives were lost, 1 family was shattered, and a community was left to carry the weight of silence for 66 long years. The Martin family story is more than just a headline from the past, it's a reminder of how fragile life is, how quickly the ordinary can turn into the unthinkable. Kenneth and Barbara Martin. Their daughters, Barbara, Virginia, and Susan. They were a family like any other, parents planning Christmas, children excited for the holidays. And then, in an instant, they were gone. Even now, as divers and investigators continue their work, the questions linger like mist over the river. What will this discovery bring? Justice? Peace? Or just more unanswered echoes from the deep? The car has been found, yes, but the truth is still surfacing. Forensic experts will analyze every inch of that wreckage. Authorities will sift through decades of evidence. And somewhere out there, the Martins' final chapter still waits to be written. If you've watched this far, pause for a moment and imagine 66 years of not knowing. 66 Christmases without closure. 66 winters of silence. The Martins couldn't click subscribe. But you can. Don't let their story fade. Don't let their voices be forgotten beneath the current. Like, share, subscribe. Not just for the story, but for every family still waiting for answers. Every cold case that remains unsolved depends on awareness, compassion, and persistence from people like you. If you've ever driven the roads of the Columbia Gorge, if you've seen something, heard something, or simply feel the weight of this mystery, drop a comment below. Every memory, every detail, every spark of information helps piece together the truth. And if you're watching this because someone you love is missing, know this: you are not alone. We are the Found Files. We stand for the missing, the found, and the families who refuse to give up hope. Because sometimes, even after 66 years, the river still speaks. Fade to silence. The slow roll of water. The faint silhouette of the submerged station wagon beneath dusk's glow. Then, the logo appears, the Found Files, where the lost are remembered, and the found are never forgotten. Subscribe now. Because every view keeps the search alive.